Good morning, afternoon, or evening. This is your painter in residence, M. Francis McCarthy, and this is Easel Talk 17, okay? And what we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about mastering skies. This is going to be, I think it's going to be a good one. It's going to be a two-parter because I know it'll go way too long. So this is part one, foundation and technique. And I'm going to try and pep it up. I know that last video went to 45. And I really do have a strong goal to get these in at 1.5 hours. Okay. Skies. In the paintings, you can see some of mine around here. To me, that's the most expressive element. Okay, that's the place where you can really get a lot of feeling into the landscape. Well, it's the sky, but you get what I'm saying. It's the landscape painting, right? Although you can do, I do sometimes. I got one looking one over there. We call it a skyscape, where just a big sky with a big, just maybe a little slice of land, usually some water, something like that. Anyway, we're going to stay focused today. But skies are one of the most expressive elements in landscape painting. They set the mood, establish the light source, that's very important, and create an atmospheric context for everything. And a well-executed sky can elevate an otherwise ordinary scene into something truly transcendental. That's my feeling, that's my belief. And this is one of the reasons, I'm sure I'm going to cover it in here. I'm getting the coffee going here. It's going to be a little hot. Hope you enjoy these easel talks. Yeah, I know there's a bit of a drop off, but come on, everyone's busy doing their own thing, I know that. But I like to show up here for those of you that are getting value. And I'm all about building legacy. And I want to say something here at the beginning. I'm not the kind of guy that likes to ask for the likes and all that. I do at the very end. But I'm gonna not harangue anybody. You can do whatever you like. But what I'm trying to build is a cathedral of content. I've got my paintings, I've got my books, I've got these videos, and it's compulsive for me to share information about painting because I love it so much. It means everything to me. And I think I like to think my channel resonates with people like that. So, if that's you, help me any way you can, okay? So let's just move on because I appreciate you. Appreciate you coming around, and I appreciate you just as someone that wants to make things, because so many people just aren't bothering, and we got to watch out. Humanity we've got to pull it together, and we've got to create, and I think that's one of the main things that gives life meaning. But anyway, back into the main message: why skies matter. The sky is always going to be the area of the painting that conveys the greatest amount of emotion. So if you're not taking advantage of that, say you've just kind of banal, just paint it blue or gray or pink. Skies are hard. Yeah, but they're not really. I mean, actually one of the great things about skies, going off script already, is that you have a lot of latitude to change things and express yourself. And I really enjoy that personally. It's people come into my studio here and they go, oh, you must love trees. And I do. I love painting trees. But hands down, my favorite thing to paint is the skies because of that. Because I can change things. I can, you don't have to. The one I've got over here, which I'll be sharing on the channel, probably, this is Ocean Beach. Yeah, there's several that are prepared, but I'm very happy with this one because I did it in a really expedient manner. I don't think expeditious is a word. I was using that in the last video. Anyway, after years of painting landscapes, I've learned I learned that how you approach the sky fundamentally shapes the entire painting. And yeah, I never really reviewed this too much. Yes, we'll talk a little about reference here. So, a lot of you, not that into messing with the digital thing. I did bring up in the last Easel Talk and In the regular weekly painting session, I talked about a program called Luminar. That's not the cheapest program, but what it is sort of designed for people that don't want to mess around with Photoshop. They just want to mess around with their pictures and have fun. And they even have presets. And of course, you can buy presets and do all sorts of things. But the reason I got it was so I can replace the skies, because it's very, very seldom in your photo reference that you're going to take where you're going to have an awesome compositional layout of the trees and the path or the water or anything that's going on, and that the sky is also great. So now if you're a photographer, you know, it's a lot of debate in the photography world about doing things like that, and yes, you're losing the absolute integrity of that image as a photograph if you start replacing the skies. But we're painters, we don't care. We use photos for our own means and methods to get our paintings done, and that's my attitude. And swapping that sky out is the first thing I do. And it's the reason it's the first thing I do is because a lot of times, like the landscape, like right now, if you look outside this window, it's silver and green. That's what the landscape predominantly looks like out here most of the time. You've got to bring in some color of some type. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll find me an interesting sky, and I'll take that as the key for the color key for the painting. So moving on. Today in part 1, I want to share the foundational principles for building your sky palette and mastering the technical challenges of painting clouds. So we're going to get into it, and there's going to be 2 parts because it means so much. You know, I'm just telling you here. I mean, the sky in it can totally make or break your painting. It could have, you know, kind of a weak, little bit of a weak composition, but if you got a mind-blowing sky, people will still like your work, and you'll still have the fun of painting the sky. Yeah. 1. Building your sky palette. Core principles. Start with the sky. I generally begin my paintings with the sky. Well, technically, I start with the underpainting, which can be very quick or take a long time. That's the armature of the painting. It's the structure. And that's important to do first prior to actually starting to paint in the clouds and things, because it tells you where the trees are going to be, and it tells you where basically everything is going to be that you're going to need to come in and do with color. So topic for another video. But we are talking about skies today. So when it gets time, the underpainting's done, we're getting ready to start painting, you'll see in video after video, I start putting in the sky. First thing I do. Putting the sky in first makes a lot of logical sense. Since the sky influences the lighting throughout the rest of the landscape. Also, when I'm coming in with my color, if there's blue in the sky, I don't always have blue, or if I'm doing the gray instead of blue thing, which will be its own talk down the road, that goes in first because that's actually behind the clouds. You know, now it's not always the case. Sometimes I'll start in the corner, you know. Okay, let's talk about the colors here. Early years, I would often use a single blue mixed with white, and that gives you a flat effect. We all know that. This blue's dark. I'm going to add white. I'm very, very open with the secret to this, and it's not mixing a bunch of different blues together. In my experience, I use one blue for everything I do. It's either Prussian or phthalo. Or, you know, you could use ultramarine if you like it. I'm not going to talk it down. I don't like ultramarine, and I'm not alone. But some people love it. You get that blue and that white together, but you throw in maybe a little raw umber. And you'll notice that has a bit of a greenifying effect. You can adjust for that if you use a little bit of like a Winton Cad Red hue, which I like because it's a red, but it's restrained. That won't actually take things into purple land unless you have a lot of it. But it'll help you balance there. Or you can a lot of times add a little bit of ivory black. Those are my 2 color killers. That'll be another talk. Well, it's nothing new, that information. It's been on the channel forever. Yeah. So in the early days, yeah, like you guys, like most of you, just white and blue and off to the races. Maybe a little yellow ochre, that's good too, actually, especially as you move lower in the sky. Yellow ochre's your friend. Now I prefer a little more complex palette with pre-mixed colors. My go-to blue is Prussian blue. Why? Because it has the history and it has a beautiful color. It's very much like phthalo. I have to ask myself, you'll hear me mumbling in the live video areas all the time, uh, why'd they even bother with inventing phthalo? Because I think they went for phthalo green first. I don't know. Anyway, Prussian blue does 95% of that work you can do with the phthalo. The Prussian blue, it's kind of late to my process, but I love it. And it's the first historical blue to be invented, the first synthetic pigment in 17 something or the other. Okay, yeah, we just talked about the crucial modification to that blue. It's very important because if your blues are too fake looking, that's the first sign. Anyone walking along goes, well, that painter hasn't been painting very long. That don't look quite right, and that'll be because you just mixed a little white in with the blue and you're off to the races. So you want to adulterate that a bit, get a little complex and don't go too muddy because that's what it does. It's muddying the color, but in a strategic way. So experiment with that. Yeah, this subtle modification I'm talking about makes the color more natural, and that's practically the whole reason the raw umber's on my palette. It's just to make colors feel more natural in and of itself. It's not a very pretty color. I don't want this yet, raw umber. You are pretty. You're very pretty. Okay. Yeah. If you're losing the blue straight out of the tube just with white, your sky will look overly synthetic and false. And we've all seen it. Prussian blue, by the way, is a little more forgiving in this regard. I've noticed that. So there's a big difference between the Prussian blue and the phthalo in that a lot of times with the Prussian blue, there's enough kind of intrinsic impurity in it that you can just in many areas add white and use it for certain areas of your painting, where with phthalo it's always going to be so intense right out of the gate. Phthalo is stronger, it is brighter, but their basic tint and toning is about the same. So okay, so pre-mixed sky colors I always have ready, especially for what you call your standard sky, okay, which is the blue sky. You got gray clouds. There's a pretty standard palette I mix for that all the time, and it's the blue with the adulteration I've outlined. Now you may want to go a little greener or a little flatter or whatever in your blue mix, but you can also have the grays, and I've been passing this tip along for a long time, and it was just this last year I actually had a bit of insight into it. We're going to talk about the tip and then we'll talk about the insight. The gray. When you look at clouds, you'll see gray, and it's not just one color. It's actually very beautiful. Open your eyes up to it if you haven't already. The gray in clouds is never just cool or warm. There's always a mixture of cool and warm. So when I am pre-mixing, I always usually I'll start with a warm gray, and a lot of times I get that with I tend to like maybe a little bit of the burnt umber there as opposed to the raw umber, because I'm already kind of dealing with some greenish aspects in the blue. And if I just, the raw umber has very, very green tendencies when you're making grays from it. Less of an issue when you're making tans, topic for another Easel Talk. But a little bit of, maybe I'll bring in the Mike's Gray, which is the ivory black mixed with the titanium white that's been adulterated with the zinc. That's like the stuff you get in the regular tubes. I can show you. I don't like to move too much, but I can show you. This is a good example of that. So this is Georgian. It just says titanium white on the tube, but it's actually got titanium and zinc in it. And the reason they do that is because titanium on its own is a very, very strong color. Yeah, very opaque. Yeah. Moving on though. The Mike's Gray mixed with the burnt umber. The Mike's Gray has a little bit of black in it, a little bit of that white and then bring in this and that to balance it out. Generally, it'll be more or less black. Now, the cool gray, for the cool gray tones in the clouds, that a lot of times you'll just see me one of the few occasions where I'll just grab something off my palette and put it in my little premix pile, and that could be the Mike's Gray. And Mike's Gray, as I just said, is just ivory black mixed with a white like that, and it's very cool all by itself already. Now there are times when I might push that into some other places, like with a little bit of blue in it. You know, you gotta be careful there because you want to see some differentiation from the blue of the sky. But I might do it, or I might add the purple, the diox purple. That's a good tip. Yeah. Now the white. Let's talk about that because you got whites in your sky. If you look at the work of the masters, we're working with lead white more. And a lot of times you'll see this is a place where they lay things in very thick. And a lot of times that's a stylistic thing, but one of the reasons they would have to do that is because lead white is way less opaque than titanium white. So they would have to put more of it to get it to be opaque, right? But this is one of the areas in my painting where I mess with the colors the most, is to get that light color. And generally I'm shooting for a creamish tone. I always want a bit more yellow than the reference is telling me, and that's just because it looks better. But if it's going too yellow, then I start to bring in like bits of Mike's Gray, which you need to be careful because the black component of that could green things up. And again, this isn't necessarily a talk just about my palette or anything, but I used to adjust for that with the burnt sienna, which has a lot of other color cast characteristics. These days I use the Winton Cad Red Hue, which is really just there to help adjust my mixes. Yeah, I don't, on its own, it's not that strong or powerful. Yeah. So the white, how do I mix it? A lot of times I might start, raw umber, big component of my light colors. A little bit of raw umber, a little bit of yellow ochre, some titanium white, usually the regular titanium, but I also have 2 titanium whites on my palette, actually 3 if you think about it. I've got the titanium white that is unadulterated, very opaque, very strong, very white, very cool. That's been bleached. I also have the unbleached version, which is titanium buff. They call it titanium buff, but that's titanium in its original form, and that's very handy. We're not going to go hard on it though. We're going to move on because we'll make this a real quick talk. Okay. Bits of this, bits of that, but you want it because I was saying this in the video the other day. The lighter the color, the more we perceive color in it. So the darker the tone, the less color we actually see. So this is one of the reasons why you might have to work a little harder. But get yourself something you feel good about, and I might even do a couple stages. I might have a semi-light color, and then I might have a real bright one. Or more often what I'll do is I'll just make something that's not overly bright, and then as I'm painting I might bring in additional amounts. Oh, I forgot my buddy Cad Yellow. Skies is like the #1 place I might use Cad Yellow, and that's when I want to push things into a real sort of yellow bright territory. Lots of times you'll see in your reference, you'll see areas that are looking like there's a lot of light buzzing through there, which gets in the inside. I was going to pass on with clouds, with these grays.
There's a link below this video for a book about how to paint tonalist landscapes. Go to my site and order one now. I'll ship it to you, and you'll know how to paint a tonalist landscape.
Clouds are made out of water. You're perceiving gray because everything's being averaged out, but think of it like this. Every cloud is a big rainbow. There's all this refraction and stuff going on. The light's hitting the water, and this is why it moves and modulates between cool and warm. Okay, it's fascinating. You can make tons of brilliant paintings of just boring skies using this sort of mindset. You know, open yourself up. No, it's just boring. No, man, it's rainbows, little mini rainbows. Okay. Sky palette, we're moving on. That took a while. Ha. Okay. Concept, grays and clouds. We already covered a lot of this. Yeah. One of the big secrets to creating interesting clouds is juxtaposing the cool grays against the warm grays. This looks nice and it's interesting, and you can push it quite far or be very subtle with it. So play with that. Cooler tones, start with that Mike's Gray, maybe a little, oh, I forgot, Rose Madder. And this is the thing too, even if your sky, you might go, well, it's middle of the day, that doesn't mean you can't bring in other colors. It doesn't mean you can't bring in yellows. It doesn't mean you can't bring in colors like Rose Madder or Diox Purple. You're just going to be a little more subtle. If you start getting real crazy with it, then people are going to believe it's... I'll let them believe whatever they want. No, they'll think it's morning or twilight or what have you. It's all good. I would rather just have... Most people don't care, so they're not going to ask questions, why is the sky so colorful? But you do want to juxtapose the cool grays against the warm grays. Just be thinking about that. In fact, a great exercise is for you to just paint some cloud studies on a little 5x7 board or boards, and just play with the juxtaposition of the cool gray against the warm gray. You can do that just to play and experiment and get better at it, because you get better painting clouds, your paintings will be better. And I've had a lot of students who really struggle with clouds, they struggle with edges. We'll hopefully be covering all of that as we go on down the line. Yeah, I work with my middle gray, my Mike's Gray, and I modify it as I paint. This is something kind of a tip I got from Kevin McPherson in a way. He liked these neutral grays from Gamblin, and he liked to tint them. Also, because he worked with a limited palette, he would keep piles of grays on the side of his, his palette there, and modify them. And it was an idea of mine that was very handy to just have one base gray that I could move. I can move it warm, I can move it cool, I could do whatever I need to with it. And it's just expedient, yeah. Or expeditious, as I said last week. Yep. For cooler tones, you can mix in violet, rose madder. That's what I was going to say. You can go into some pink and rose madder. You go, oh no, rose, alizarin crimson. Basically, same difference. Okay, that's a cool, deep cherryish tone. It's brilliant for skies because you have a lot of latitude to get pinks across in the sky, and I'm always looking for opportunities to spread the colors out and express myself. Yeah. I do like burnt sienna sometimes. You bring in that in, it's like a subtle orangey tone, or yellow ochre. I need yellow ochre mostly for when that sky is starting from a darkish blue at the top and moving down to the lighter. It gets lighter as it gets to the horizon. I'm sure you've noticed that. Yellow ochre is your friend there. And it's especially great now because I've had Winton mixing red in my life for the last year and a half or so, and I know I can use that to balance things out. Prior to that, I would add little bits maybe of burnt sienna or what have you, just to fight that green tendency that's an inherent aspect of yellow ochre. Moving on. The interplay between warm and cool gray creates visual interest and a sense of atmospheric depth that a uniform gray cannot achieve. So don't just mix one gray and say, it's all gray. It's all just gray. No, that's an opportunity you're missing there, my friend. You wanna play with them grays. My painting process for skies, I work from the top down, okay? That helps create a natural sense of depth. As I mentioned, if there's blue, that usually goes in first, yeah. The sky is typically darker and more saturated at the zenith, that's directly overhead, and becomes lighter and less saturated as it approaches the horizon. If you didn't notice that, make a note of it. I think most people do know that. They might struggle to express it. But, that's a basic one, yeah. Use a light touch and a variety of brush strokes. Okay, we're talking about painting process now. Because the sky is made out of air and water, you want to always have a bit of lightness in your approach. If you're going to start piling the paint down, that could be a stylistic thing. No, I'm not dissing anyone that's doing that. That's fine. But you want to have a sense of lightness. And one thing I found is very helpful is just to remember that you're painting water vapor, air and water, okay? And this will help you as you're expressing yourself, painting your beautiful sky. Yeah, light touch, variety of brush strokes from broad sweeps to smaller, more whatever strokes. What you generally don't want to do is get into a mechanical kind of thing. Also, I will point out here, look, we're using a different brush to point today. It's not a treacle. This is a Signet Robert Simmons. I still love you, Robert. This is a flat. I was using these for ages before I got into the filberts. Now I'm a filbert junkie, especially in skies. I really love them. But I could work this work too, and I did, and that's why I thought, oh, we'll change it up. I'm going to point with our tan Robert Simmons today. Light touch, variety of strokes. A variation of brushwork helps us suggest the ethereal, ever-changing nature of the sky. And that's the other thing. So you want to be a plein air painter of skies? Good luck with that, because that sky is changing. I often said, if you want to be a plein air painter of sunsets, move to Alaska. Because they have sunset for like 8 hours there. My cloud painting sequence. After laying in my blue sky color, I almost paint in the darkest grays of the clouds next, and gradually work towards the lighter grays, medium tones, whatever's going on there. If it's a sunset, it might be the oranges and yellows. And working my way to the lightest off-white tones. And by the way, I want to say it here, you stay away from 100% white in your skies, period. Always well back, okay? There might be places and applications for that, but usually not in landscape painting. It might be the highlight in someone's eye. It might be a place where you use 100% white. But if you haven't heard that from someone else, you heard it from Uncle Mike. Critical value warning, important note. Critical value warning! Critical value warning! Regardless of how dark the cloud colors might be in your reference, it's always better to paint them somewhat lighter. Yeah, this is something I've been passing along for years. And not only that, but you'll see me adulterated all the time. I start and I've got them in and they're too dark and I come in over the top. And that's all good. The main thing is to catch it. You don't ever want to have those dark, they might really look super black in the reference, really dark, but you don't want to have them that dark. The darkest things in your picture need to be the tree shapes, usually against a brighter sky. Just remember it, okay? And do not paint your clouds too dark, yeah. Overly dark clouds compete with the dark forms of the land. It's confusing. Yeah, I just said I have to adulterate them all the time, but a lot of times it's hard to gauge that. So you might have your whole sky in. As I said, we're painting the sky first, and then we're going to move into the land. And then when you have all that together, you say, "Ooh, wow, that sky's too dark. I need to adjust that." Now's the time. Now's the time to do that. Yeah. Yeah, you're going to have to, you may have to, a lot of times too, it doesn't even need to wait for the tree forms to come in. Once you have the whole sky together, you can say, well, those clouds are really, really dark, and then adjust them there. And it's not a bad effect to have something like a cloud that's painted a little too dark and then come in with some paint over the come in with some paint over the top to adjust it. Okay. Takeaway. Interesting skies come from the interplay of warm and cool grays and careful value management, and always err on the side of those dark clouds being not too dark. Yeah, it said here lighter clouds, but I don't want, I could confuse you. Number 3, mastering the challenge of cloud edges. These aren't really the steps of, so I'm not doing that stuff today. Core challenge, cloud edges. I've had So many students struggle with this, and as I imagine if they're struggling with it, you probably struggle with it. Let's talk about some insights I can lay on you for the edges, because this is really one of the places that what's harder than cloud edges against, say, the blue sky is the edges of the trees against the sky, but we're not going to get too much into that today because we're talking about painting skies. One of the hardest challenges with painting clouds is capturing these edges. If you observe clouds in nature, you'll notice they're very mysterious. That edge is always moving, always shifting. It's never a hard thing. So the number one thing to remember is that don't smear, no smearing, no smearing. But you definitely don't want to have an etched hard edge unless you've got this like real graphic like type of style, which is, you know, not what we're talking about here. Yeah, you don't want it to look like you cut them out with a pair of scissors, really. And how do you do that? Yeah, yeah, I said no smearing right here. Yeah, if you do the smearing, it looks greasy and unnatural to me. It looks like Bob Ross. I'm not dissing you, Bob. I love you. I've watched plenty of Bob Ross. Love him. Okay, my preferred technique. I start by paying special attention to values as I lay in my clouds. Similar to placing tiles in mosaic. I put some here, I put some there, and I always try and keep the edges of the patches of color I'm putting in somewhat loose, somewhat open. In my idea is like this, where you have, you know, say this is the blue and it's grabbing the color of the clouds. And when you look really close, you might actually see a little bit of board color even peeking through. Yeah, I rely on the side of my brush to jigger. A lot of times, one thing hopefully I can, you know, where you might go like this. Can you see that? Try anything, and you do too. One of my favorite techniques is to do a little bit of pulling or squibbling. I do a lot of like this kind of thing, like I call that sewing. It's like a sewing sort of technique. It's all in the painting videos. You can slow it down and watch what I do. I've been doing it time and again. And one of the great things I have to say about having painted so many skies now, so many clouds, I mean, I'm just going to be better if I keep painting for another 10 years. But I've been painting a while, so when I approach a sky, I don't have to think as much about how I'm going to do it. I've got a bunch of different techniques in my arsenal that I can bring to bear, and so much of it is just done kind of automatically now. Yeah, but I like to slow down the process and impart it to you because I know you may be struggling, especially with edges. Yeah, just think a little wiggling, a little jiggling, a little scumbling, kind of whatever you can do to keep those edges loose. We're doing all right. We're doing okay. Look, it's the back. It's the back. Oh, I'm 32. Oh, I'm so glad I cut this talk in two. Hey, we got interrupted. And something went wrong with the recording. And then I did re-record this last page. And I was going to let it go, but this camera decided it wasn't interesting in focusing on me. It was interesting in focusing on lovely paintings. And I asked my wife, she's like, well, the paintings are beautiful. Okay, anyway, here I'm going to go and get this done here. So where we left it was we're talking about jiggering, you know, the edges, right? To kind of, the idea is you want to try different things. And yes, I was talking about like making a sort of a cutting motion. You don't want to do that too much, but sometimes I will even do that. But even there, I might do a little wiggle in the brush or something, okay? Anyway, crucial tip for cloud edges. Yeah, this is a big one. You're going to have highlights on the edges of your clouds, just like you have highlights on the edges of your trees, right? And the thing is, you want to avoid having a consistent, uniform sort of highlight, right? You want to break it up and make it irregular. And one thing I'll do is always make sure to bring some bits of the darker cloud, not the darkest cloud, but the darker tones right up to the edge. And you see me do that on my trees too. That's a really big tip. And the reason I do that is because of this phenomenon of the uniform halo thing. You'll see it from a distance sometimes. If you're like, hey, if I'm looking at one of my paintings behind me here when reviewing one of these videos, I would definitely be able to spot that kind of thing. I can definitely spot other sorts of irregularities that way. Yeah, so my solution is always bring it in a little bit up there. Make sure whatever you do, it's a challenge to paint. No lie, won't lie. I never lie to you. But you practice with it. That's what I do. I'm constantly, especially the toughest bits, like when you got these very strong edge lights on the cloud. And I don't like to slow down so much. I'm getting extra precious about things, but I do slow down. I definitely try and apply myself there. Okay, practice recommendation. Painting clouds is tricky and requires a lot of practice, and it does. So one thing you could do is get yourself I don't have anything handy here, but a little sketch pad with some thicker type paper. Put down a, holy cow. Put down a layer of house paint on that, and just do yourself some sky studies. I don't want to break that. Yeah, do a bunch. Just if you finding sky reference is easy, you could just go to Google, put in beautiful sky, and just start painting. Paint a bunch. And what's great is that these won't be paintings that have to stand on their own. It's an exercise you're doing in order to learn, and that's very valuable. And trust me, you had 10, 20 of these, you'll really notice a vast improvement in your skies. Okay, as always, experience is the best teacher, especially with painting. Now there's some things you can learn just by listening to someone, maybe. I ain't answering that. I know what that is. It's telling me, you used your phone 5 seconds longer than last week. Okay. Yeah, so practice. Practice with some non-committal sort of, little cloud studies. Next. Challenging cloud types. I have a personal admission. I have a real tough time sometimes painting just like white clouds against a blue sky. First of all, I'm not that interested. But yes, the less gray in them too, especially if they're very white, very fluffy against a blue sky. That's just so non-tonal. It's not my kind of thing. But what I would say is you want to the reason why that's such a big challenge is because of the more contrast you have between the clouds and the blue of the sky, the more of a challenge it is to get a convincing looking cloud. Especially, don't resort to smearing. No smearing, okay? But what I would do in a situation like that is I tend to bring in a bit more gray. In fact, it's very helpful to have a gray within the cloud that's a very similar value to the blue of the sky itself. That's one of my big when painting blue skies with clouds, that's one of my big secrets for pulling it off. Okay, so you can experiment. What else we got to say here? Yeah, it's the contrast. Oh yeah, I want to talk about that. So one of the real challenges is like, and not just with that, but with almost any sky that you're going to try and paint, is there'll be areas of where the white of the cloud is really bright against the more medium tone of the sky, and that intense contrast is very hard to pull off. One of the things that I'll do, if you watch me paint, which hopefully you have, and will continue to, is to bring a gray right up to the edge where it meets the sky, and then when I put in that brightest white, I don't go all the way overlapping the blue. I do have the brush here. I stopped it short, so if you got in very close and zoomed in, you would see a little a gray edge there, which helps as a sort of transition. Yeah. So just a tip. Tips ahoy, tips ahoy. Yeah, that jigger technique, little wiggles, little pulls. But don't get tight. Don't get tight. Loosen up. Just stay loose, okay? Okay, we're closing, which is good. recap. This has been the foundation and technique portion of our cloud talk. We're going to have a part 2 coming up. And I'll probably do that in the next day or so, just so that it's well, actually, this stuff, that's why I had no problem coming in today. It was 2 days ago I did the first part of the talk, and part 1, and the redone version, which was out of focus. I can tell it's actually focusing on me now, which is good. I don't know why it does that sometimes. And it was bad because it was like for 6-7 minutes, so I need to focus here. Okay. Okay. Today we've covered the essential foundation for painting skies, starting with a pre-mixed palette and approaches there. Outline some of my approaches, and they're consistent. You'll see me do them time and again. And that's okay. You don't have to reinvent the wheel with your colors every time you paint. That's like an idea that some people have, because it's already even if you repaint the same scene again, you'll find it's a challenge all over again. There's plenty of challenges with painting. So some things that once you figured them out, just keep going forward with them. And that's definitely what I do with the warm gray versus the cool gray, and my approach to mixing the blues and then adding in that bit of raw umber or black to counteract the fakeness of the tube pigment. The way the pigment comes out of the tube when it just hits the white, it's fake looking and no good. Yep. Yes, we juxtapose. It's a great word, isn't it? Juxtapose the warm versus the cool. If you forget everything else I said, and then we didn't really get into talking much about sunsets because they're kind of their own thing. I can make their own talk. There's a certain set of rules once you start introducing massive amounts of color like orange and things into the sky. And maybe we'll get into some of that in part 2. I have a mental note that I didn't really address it here. Everything we said here is for your standard sort of sky, but it applies to if you're bringing in other colors. Most of the principles would be the same. As a matter of fact, you're going to need to have some grays in there, even if it's the orangiest sunset ever. I would bring in some brownish grays, right? Okay, we talked about the technique of the brush handling, and I can only give you so much insight there. Although, just slow down one of my videos and watch what I do. I don't think many people do that, but I've very, very much applied myself to that and getting a good effect in the sky with my edges. Sometimes I'm really good, and sometimes I'm just good. Sometimes I struggle like crazy, just like all the rest of us, right? So whatever. Okay, what's coming in part 2? That's a good question. Part 2, we're going to build on this foundation. Atmospheric perspective, that's really good to get that feeling of depth in your sky. Compositional strategies. The sky is not a place to ignore composition. It's a place where you really can mess up a strong composition if you have clouds in the wrong places, going the wrong way, and what have you. Using color and emotion to maximize impact, and I definitely will talk more about sunsets and things there. Working with reference images, including sky swapping. I couldn't help myself. I brought it up earlier, but we'll talk more about it. I think it's very important to have good reference, inspiring reference. If you are a digital agnostic, which who can blame you, just have a photo of a cool sky and a photo of your regular land stuff and integrate them that way. I mean, that's what we were doing in the old days, right? We'll be talking about common problems and how to solve them, and we'll be getting deeper into the tonalist approach to skies, which will also touch more on sunset and color and things like that. Because let's face it, blue skies, fluffy clouds, it's not very tonal, right? Your homework. Before we get to part 2, I encourage you to take my advice and just do some little practice paintings of skies. You just put a strip of something on the bottom for the land and just have fun painting clouds, because if it's one of the things you need to address in every painting you do, and just another thing you need to get right. But kind of splintering it off on its own and working with it is very valuable, and I've done some of that, and it's fun too. It's really fun. Yeah, painting's fun. We know it's fun. Focus with trying different things on those edges, especially in those little studies, right? Yeah. and try working with the premixes on the palettes and stuff like that too. That's it for this talk. If you got some value, please support me. The likes, comments, and the members area here on the YouTube or the Substack. It's all good stuff. I'm always putting really valuable material there, and yeah, I'll keep on doing it and keep on painting. We're gonna make it happen.
Did you know you could buy the book? Landscapepainter.co.nz. The book cost $65. You